The debate, the row, I think it's fair to say, about animal testing, Leeds University has been the focus, but I'll speak to an expert from Huddersfield University with a different take on this next.
The BBC for West Yorkshire.
BBC Radio Leeds.
Now, if you're a dog owner, here's a question. Would you sacrifice your pet for medical research? Seems a strange, even an extreme question, but that's exactly what animal aid protesters have been putting to shoppers in Leeds this afternoon. The group says it wants to see an end to animal testing at Leeds University, but the university says its research is done to improve the health and the welfare of humans and animals. It's BBC Radio Leeds, 24 minutes past 5. Let's get a different perspective now. Dr. Laura Waters is from Huddersfield University, and as I understand it, she believes that breakthroughs in chemistry and computers could make it unnecessary to use live animals for tests. Laura, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Andrew.
So are you saying it's not necessary to test animals for medical research then?
I don't think it is, and I think that there's a lot of alternatives out there which would be suitable to be used instead of animals in scientific research. So in my particular area, in drug development, there's all sorts of alternatives that could be adopted instead, so we don't have to use animals anymore.
You just heard Dr. Abbas, though, there saying that in some cases there is no other alternative.
I think it's fair enough to say that in the past there weren't alternatives, but these days we have a wide variety of alternatives, and there's lots of scientists out there right now that are working on developing even more alternatives. So the future is looking better and better at being able to swap over to using alternatives.
OK, I mentioned a couple of things there, chemistry and computer breakthroughs. Give me an example of how it would work.
Sure. So from all the information that we have so far where we have used animals, we're able to put together a very detailed picture of how drugs interact with each other and how they interact with the body. And so by looking at the structure of a new drug, we can make good predictions about how it may work in the body. And also from the computer simulations, we can take it further and we can use alternative methods, and we can use chemical mimics in the laboratory to see how the drugs interact with mimics as well.
I just wrote down a couple of things there. Good predictions and chemical mimics. The fact is you are not actually testing on a living organism.
Well, sometimes they do. Some of the alternatives that are proposed are actually involving human volunteers. And there's a thing called microdosing, where human volunteers are giving very, very tiny doses of a drug, and it's monitored through the body, so it's so low a dose it won't cause any nasty side effects, but it's high enough that we can follow it and we can track it through the body to find out where it ends up.
Do you think this could bring eventually an end to animal testing entirely, or will there always be those who feel you do need to use a real living thing, perhaps at doses which are not microdoses?
I'd like to think that in the long term it could be a complete replacement of animal testing. In the shorter term, the way that we can reach the long-term goal is in the shorter term by introducing alternatives that are credible and have them accepted, especially in the pharmaceutical industry. And so by swapping over to the alternatives, by making animal testing optional rather than compulsory like it currently is, making it optional would be a step towards that.
How well known are these methods?
Well, I've been doing quite a lot of work lately in promoting them. So, for example, I was talking in Bradford at the British Science Festival. I also do other public engagement work, but a lot more needs to be done to promote these. So I'm giving a lecture, I know it's a long way, but next March, on the 14th of March at the University of Huddersfield, I'm giving a public lecture about the alternatives. If anybody wants to come along, please let the university know. And I also do lots of other work. I'm trying to put together a documentary as well into the alternatives.
Interesting. Can I just ask you very briefly, there'll be some people who wouldn't want any drug that had been testing on a living organism. On the other hand, there'll be those who feel that if push comes to shove and in a medical emergency, they'd want something that had been tested properly. That's a very difficult set of issues to reconcile, isn't it?
It is, and just because it's been done in the past, it doesn't mean we should carry on doing it into the future. And as scientists learn more about how the body works and how drugs interact, there's no reason why we need to keep on testing on animals. They don't always reflect what will happen in a human. Just because it happens one way in an animal does not mean it will happen the same way in a human, so they're not always a good prediction.
Really interesting to speak to you, Laura. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Dr. Laura Waters from Huddersfield University, 28 minutes past 5, BBC Radio Leeds on a Wednesday afternoon. I'm Andrew Edwards.
The BBC for West Yorkshire.
BBC Radio Leeds.